current panel is going to be talking about Layer Zero. Layer Zero is actually community. But before we get started, I'm sure you guys have heard Mr. Namdar several times today, so he needs to introduce himself. Ben, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give people an idea who you are.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Ben Sigmund. I'm the CEO of Make Sense Labs, where we build blockchain products that align the incentives of the platform and the people.
That's it? Oh, man, you're great. He's very, very humble, you guys. Ben is actually a technologist and a futurist in every sense of the word. So you guys have questions about decentralizations and things that are the future of our technology is going and direction it's being built in, and also any of you developers out there who have any technical questions, Ben's your guy. I know I bombarded him to death over the past 4 or 5 years with questions, but he always answers my questions, though. I'm grateful to God. So we're here to talk about community. And ultimately, not too long ago, I started really focusing on what is actual Layer Zero, right? And the reason why I did was because on a panel that I was on in a conference in Dubai was where I actually realized why is it meme coins are so successful. Now, I don't want you guys to think this is a panel about meme coins. This is not. But ultimately, the reason why meme coins are successful was because of community and the communities that they have behind them. Now, regardless of the reasons why these people are advocates of said community, there are still, the community is what's driving these meme coins, that are utterly useless forward. But they're doing so because they have an entertainment factor with that. The entertainment factor is what, is not a metric that we can't measure. But let's talk a little bit about community and how important it is to blockchain, really any type of business, but more importantly, blockchain projects. And, how is it that it was established and what makes it go?
So I agree with you. It's Layer Zero because I really like to say blockchains are people.
I'm a super node.
Behind every miner, behind every computer that's running a blockchain, there are people who are making decisions. And it's very interesting that, we've seen a few times where the community consensus has overruled token majorities and all kinds of other things, like with Ethereum, for example. There was the DAO hack, and then we had a fork of ETH and Ethereum Classic. So now we had a question of legitimacy, and the community decided which chain was legitimate. And it's, that's why we have ETH and ETC today. And the same thing happened with Steemit and Hive. When Steemit was acquired by
Justin Sun.
Yeah, by Justin Sun, Tron, then the community actually forked the chain, and Steemit has lost legitimacy, and Hive has become the main chain. So it's really about the power of the community to choose the direction of what becomes legitimate in the future. And it's a big game of legitimacy, and that's really one of the big things that is fascinating about the concept of blockchains are people, because these are people getting together and making these decisions.
Yeah, so I love that. So Pedro and I did a talk on this topic in Dubai a couple months ago now. And there really is, none of this would be happening, the whole cryptocurrency space, none of this would exist today without community, right? Behind every technology, every new project that's come about, from Bitcoin, from Ethereum, from every new innovation along the way, right? It's taken community, it's taken excitement, it's taken passion, it's taken this religious belief that we're creating something new and coming together to do it in order for any of this to amount to things. Even now, like what I alluded to earlier with DAOs, the concept of DAOs wouldn't have taken off, right, and didn't for the first couple of years because there was no aspect and the technology wasn't there yet for people to actually start participating and contributing to the community around them. Now we've seen at NFT NYC a month ago, the Bored Ape Yacht Club and a couple of other DAOs, Pleaser DAO, are just blowing everybody away because of how active the communities are, and that's really driving interaction. It's driving value to those platforms.
Excellent. So what we understand is that community moves these projects, but how is it that, because you see a lot of projects out there, right, that are, technically sound, well-funded, great team, everything associated with it, but they don't really have any traction because they don't have any community. So what would you suggest would be some of the advice that people could utilize to actually build community? And we'll start with you, Mr. Namdar. You have an interesting background, basically, in the community that I have a heavy role in.
Yeah, so I think it takes a very, nimble, humble, multifaceted approach. When I think about different projects, right, one of the reasons why Ethereum's gotten to the point it has is because they did well not just to tap into the kind of the greed and the speculators and investors, but really to bring together what still to this day is the most active and robust developer community. So you need a mix of just people with financial interest, people with technical and developer interest and talent, and then you need people who just have this religious belief that it's going to be the chain, it's going to be the technology that wins out no matter what. As we see with all the other layer one platforms, that they've each have a different kind of percentage and mix of attracting speculators, attracting developers, but the ones that really are going to win out over time and actually win out through different cycles are the ones that have that sustainable community and a nice balance of people with all different interests.
I feel like there's no magic recipe to curating your community, but it just takes daily commitment and work. It's about really sticking to it. Yeah, it's about really sticking to the daily work. Community is about communication. And so I don't think there's a magic recipe or magic pill for it. But the success that we've had is in finding our first adopters, supporting them and using our products, then hiring from within that group of people, the first adopter people, to make community managers. So the leaders rise up from the community groups that you have on Telegram or Discord. And I think that gamification really helps a lot. People want to be rewarded and compete. And what's happening on these Discords right now is out of control. Like these NFT Discords are blowing up with hundreds of thousands of users in a very short time period. So it's a very interesting thing to watch and study and join and look at and learn about what they're doing that's working.
Well, yeah. So, I guess just to add to that a little bit, again, in the last cycle, it was mostly interaction and community building was done through Slack and then through WhatsApp channels. Now it kind of moved in the last couple of years more to Telegram, and the newest thing is in Discord. So really, like in every cycle, we're seeing different tools being utilized, but and then some of it's really going back to Twitter. Twitter's kind of reemerged, and crypto Twitter as being one of the most important places where people are engaging with their communities.
So you said a couple of things there, right, that, I might tend to disagree with, right? So there isn't a magic, formula that's going to be, universal for all projects. But I think there's a couple key ingredients that will be included in all successful, building of all communities. I think a couple of things that you said were true in terms of being passionate about what it is that you're doing and it not being something that's that's an exterior motivating factor, but an interior motivating factor. And the other thing would be, the commitment that you have alongside of it of being consistent, right? So if you look at what we've done here in San Juan, Crypto Mondays, we've been consistently, week after week after week after week producing great content. A lot of that's due to you guys. I have a tremendous network of great friends that happen to be very successful in the space. But also, too, it's because of the commitment that I have to make sure that this happens, regardless of the fines that I've paid to the San Juan Police Department, to the health department, to the pandemic, to the scam. I don't care about any of that. Bottom line, we'll make sure we're going to get together every single week, and those who want to attend are free to attend. And also, too, I'm also committed to making sure that I'm not going to just accept sponsorship money from anyone that, is not providing real world value. So I'm going to care for the community as I would care for my family, and I'm not thinking of an exit strategy like you would think of in a business, but I'm thinking ultimately, how do you raise your family members? You don't raise your family members and think about selling them off. You raise them to continue to build them to be great for generations. And then the third and final thing I would say that's also always constantly in every single successful community is that shared vision. The shared vision of where do we want to go. Shared vision, you paint that shared vision in the sky of where is it that we want to go and, what is it going to be like when we get there. And ultimately, you make sure that the people around you, they're not doing anything other than what they're good at, but ultimately they're doing it in the direction that we want to go into that shared vision and into that shared community.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about is that for developer communities, there is actually some bit of a recipe because you need to have documentation and code examples. If you have a platform that developers are building on, you have to give them examples of how to use your code and how it can be deployed. Otherwise, it's way too complicated to try to figure out by reading the code bases. It's not going to happen. So the success of a lot of platforms is really dependent on their level of documentation. So a lot of people always tell me, Ben, how do I get more developers? I'm always like, where's your documentation? Where's your examples? What do you want people to do with it? Build that as an example, open source it so that people can learn and see what can be done. Then people understand the power and the how-to of it.